Morning, everybody. Welcome to the December meeting of the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission, and thanks again to Ducks Unlimited for opening this wonderful venue to allow us to have our meeting here today. At this time, I'll turn to Commissioner Hank Wright to lead us in the invocation and the pledge, please.
Father, we love you. We're just grateful for this opportunity to care for and steward these resources you created and that we love so much. And we pray for guidance today, discernment, wisdom, and guide our decisions, this agency and the resources and those. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Appreciate it. Okay, we have a lot of guests here today, and if I mispronounce your name, I'll try to get as close as possible. Mr. Justin Jones, Sheila Westray, Kenny Trout, Clarence and Laura Dye, Terry and Jane Lewis, Daffodil Long, Bill Coxey, Mike Butler, Horace Tipton, Katie Mills, Ivy Ballou, Nikki Plunkett, Jay Butner, former Commissioner Angie Box, welcome Joe and Sherry Mathau, Lee Worley, Craig Roberts, Scott and Angie D'Amico, Ellie Egnick, Laura Ray, Dwayne Baird, Connie Bruce, Zachary Marlowe, and I can't get this one, but Joe Lynch, I think maybe, and I said former commissioner, former chair Angie Box. Welcome everybody, and we appreciate all being here today. It's also my pleasure to report today that our Deputy Director, wife, April Ware, is 28 today or 29? 26. I'm sorry, but forgive me. Forgive me for that. Okay, commissioners, you should have received the minutes, and let me call roll first. Mary, would you call the roll, please?
Monty Blue.
Here.
Brad Box.
Here.
Stan Wildress.
Here.
Bill Cox.
Here.
Greg Davenport. Chris Devaney.
Here.
Ford Little. Rhonda Moody. Here. Chip Saltzman.
Here.
Tommy Woods.
Here.
Hank Wright.
Here.
Jay Granbery.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mary. And commissioners, you've received the minutes, and I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Commissioner Blue, second. Commissioner
Second.
Devaney. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And it's approved. Thank you. All right. Announcements. First, let me say thank you to Bill and Cindy Cox for hosting us last night at dinner. It was a wonderful evening and a wonderful part of the state of Tennessee, and we really appreciate the hospitality, Commissioner Cox and Cindy. I don't think she's here. We also had a sweater contest last night, and it's my pleasure to announce the winners. I don't know what your prize is, but you do win. The best female sweater was Heather Devaney. I don't know where Heather is. Yay, Heather. Honorable mention was Emily Buck, and the best male sweater was Brad Box, Commissioner Box. Where's Commissioner Box? Congratulations. And
Mr. Chairman, point of order. I don't think Commissioner Box had a sweater. I think it was a jacket. I don't think that counts. I don't know.
You're out of order, Commissioner. You're out of order. So honorable mention was the tallest elf in the room, Kent Harkington. And since I called you down, Commissioner, I won the Best Grinch Award. So thank you for everybody for participating in the contest last night. It was a lot of fun. So Director Maxidon.
Also mentioned that Commissioner Boggs had a really sharp looking cowboy hat on last night. And thank you, Commissioner Cox, for hosting us all last night at your home, you and Miss Cindy. Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. We've got a busy day today ahead of us as we move into today's meeting and vote. I'd like to acknowledge the commission's dedication in studying this matter over the past year. It's really been a long time that you've been studying this. You visited. One of the things that we're going to talk about toward the end of the session, that was North Cumberland WMA, and appreciate you all coming out to see that firsthand. This has been a challenging and a thorough process, and I want to extend my sincere thanks to each of you and the agency staff for all the time and the effort that you've put in. There's been a lot of careful consideration devoted to this. You've given a lot of time reviewing the proposals, considering all the public input that we've gathered, and addressing the concerns. Our regional staff worked hard and diligent in preparing this, and I want to thank you all for that. I know this is a decision that won't be made lightly, but it's a crucial step for ensuring the long-term success of our agency and supporting our license buyers. With that important discussion ahead of us, I'd now like to take a moment to recognize the outstanding efforts of our wildlife officers in response to Hurricane Helene. When the storm struck, it tested the resilience of East Tennessee communities. At that moment, our wildlife officers answered the call without hesitation, showing unwavering determination to serve and to protect. We had officers rescue and trapped individuals from homes, which you're going to see in just a minute, assisting TEMA with evacuations and supporting road closures and more. In the days that followed, staff from across the agency came together for Tennesseans. Dispatchers worked around the clock, heavy equipment crews and WMA staff cleared debris, they restored access to waterways, prepared sites for debris piling. Beyond the incredible search and rescue efforts, TWRA remained at the forefront of recovery, working tirelessly to return a sense of normalcy to our East Tennessee neighbors in the crisis. I had the opportunity to be on site and witness firsthand the devastation that took place. It's something that I will never forget. But what stands out the most is the willingness of our team, our TWRA employees, to put themselves on the front lines, working tirelessly through long days and nights to do what needed to be done to help our communities. As the situation began to stabilize, we took stock of our response and counted more than 130 staff members that were boots on the ground to help through this. And behind the scenes, there were countless others supporting them logistically. They say it takes a team to make things run smoothly, but here at TWRA, we're more than just a team. We're a family. We always talk about that as agency employees, how we're a close family, and we truly are. This became abundantly clear in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. I think it's safe to say that our officers prove that they're more than just wildlife professionals. They're community servants willing to step beyond our wildlife mandate to respond in times of need. We're fortunate to have the best staff in the state, and we're proud to recognize them for their unwavering commitment of selflessness. Chairman, I'm going to turn it back over to you, but what you're going to see next, we've got a video that we're going to show you some of the efforts that occur here in that time. Thank you, Matt Cameron. Thank you to Don King. Thank you to Jason Harmon. Staff worked hard on putting this video together, so we're proud of our communications team. And now we'll tee that up if that's okay with you,
Mr. Director.
Friday, September 27th was the day that TEMA called us out on the flood work in Cobb County, which ended up Friday, September 27th was the day that TEMA called us out on the flood work in Cobb County, which ended up being Greene, Washington, and Unicoi counties as well. I was en route to Cobb County around lunchtime, and I heard Major Hammonds get over the radio and ask for help for officers to be headed toward the Unicoi. Friday, September 27th was the day that TEMA called us out on the flood work in Cobb County, which ended up being Greene, Washington, and Unicoi counties as well. I was en route to Cobb County around lunchtime, and I heard Major Hammonds get over the radio and ask for help for officers to be headed toward the Unicoi County Hospital, that there were several people on top of the hospital that needed to be rescued. While en route, I was coming down Highway 107 en route to Unicoi County when I was flagged down by a car that asked me for assistance over on Dave Fender Road. He advised that there were 3 people trapped that needed rescuing, along with a couple of pets.
Jeff told him I would be on my way. Got his location. Officer Justin Pinkston, he grabbed a boat and came to our interaction direction. Matt Cameron, he hollered at me and said he could come. He backed it in. Jeff and I were already ready. We jumped on board and we just took out.
Go, go, go.
Yeah, this yellow house right here.
Yep, that's right.
Sure, that thing starts. We're still.
Took off across the water. There were a lot of lines in the water, and we didn't know if they were power lines or what they were. So we were trying to avoid those and making our way in this really stiff current around to a house that was over that way, and a shed that had two people located on the roof of it.
Before I get into Swift stuff, let's see what I need to say. This house, we are on the road.
We got to get this guy the yellow first. He is more likely to not make it. If you give me the window, I'll just kick it in.
But it's gonna be tough to hold with that fence right there. Oh, let's get
Y'all
this.
talk to him and all. He is.
I can't get that fence. I'll get stuck in it. I'll never get loose.
Can we pull up right here and just let him come out? We can lock that on?
I think I can.
He's got dogs too.
We might need to get them. Because look at the water coming through the building.
Yeah.
And so the water was just coming up so fast. We knew the two guys were on the roof of the shed.
Just grab him.
Hey, Shelly. We're grabbing them. Water's coming through their building. Y'all come. If he gets to the window in time. Because that building's about to go.
Is he coming to this side?
We maneuvered around to get those guys off the shed. We got them.
Don't need to set that up. You ready? I can flip real good. Not in this. Hold on. All right, take your life jackets out, hold back in here. Thank you. Go ahead, push me off. You're good. Let's get this. Y'all ready? Yeah. It's coming up, though, so he needs to hurry. And I gotta go through a window to go in there and get him. I will. Who's the prayer? I got throwback ready. Freddie, you good? I got one.
What about the animal?
got one inside the house. We got a rope to him. We're trying to get him out right now. Predator's in the water. All right. Hang on, because I killed the motor. He's spinning. Hold on. Hold on. You gotta hold. You gotta hold.
I will say, if it wasn't for Jeff Prater and Justin Pinkston, all three of those men would be dead today. I don't think they would have survived it. As we got back to shore, we got the boat loaded and kind of thought, well, we were going to head to Carp County because we could hear on the radio there was a lot of Carp County traffic, and we knew there was a lot of rescues needing to be made. We could hear that Unicoi was kind of under control. All the bridges and the roads were out. We were kind of trapped in here in this little area, and someone flagged us down again and said that there were 15 people trapped in a barn just up the road. So we headed up that way. Justin Pinkston and Matt Cameron launched the boat. They headed off into this very, very swift water, about a quarter of a mile away or so, maybe a little farther. And they rescued 2 people out of a tree and got them safely back to shore.
Left check. This is what they want.
Thank you.
Do 3 right here. Trace.
Went back out one more time. They got 3 people off of the roof of the barn. To get to the other people that were located in a larger barn that was a little further away, the water was just too turbulent.
Left there. Right here.
Our boat was obviously giving us a lot of trouble in the silty water and debris-filled water that we were encountering. So we got the boat loaded up, and a helicopter flew overhead, a THP helicopter, and they were able to land on the roof of one of the barns and start evacuating those individuals that were trapped and brought them over to our location. And they did about 5 trips maybe.
But where the house is, the video that was posted of where we were operating was just right here.
This is the pole that I was holding on to. So the boat was kind of right here, and the room that was washed through with water was right there, where Justin and Jeff were making that rescue.
So this was the frame.
There's windows over there, and I guess it was windows, but water had and debris had busted through all of that, and the door. But there was a piece of a door like blocking the area, and when Jeff removed that, like everything inside just came out and carried him back.
Brian he was in this main portion of the home, and he was trying to get through this doorway right here, and he was beating on this door, screaming he was stuck and that he needed help. And this is where I was trying to get him to shatter this. It was like it was a glass door, but it might have been plexiglass. He was hitting it with everything. There was no break at all. Like I say, I got washed away, and by the time I made it back up here, he had slid the door open enough to get out with the dogs, and he worked his way down this side. And at this point, he had on a life jacket. They had thrown me a life jacket. He had on a life jacket, and he had a hold of that throw rope. But at some point, I let go of it, and I don't know what it wedged onto. This is where I think divine intervention come into this. There's nothing here, but there was something that held that rope that allowed us to stand in the doorway against that flow of the river. But he worked his way down. Obviously, he tried to hand the dogs off. They floated away. I swam after them and got them.
Brian was in that corner and yelling he was pinned. So I got about out here, and I was holding that rope, but I was able to grab his hand and pull him. And when I did, he came to this doorway, and there was a 2x4 just perfectly horizontal across the door about waist high that he run into, and he was bent over. That 2x4 and stuff was against his leg, couldn't get over it. And we tried and tried. Yeah, the Prater was here. I was trying to push on it. I was trying to lift it. It wouldn't budge. And after a couple of minutes, I was actually able to just go almost completely under and get up under the board and squat it up. And when it come up, he went right to Prater, and Prater caught him.
So you rescued 2 dogs the day of, but there was a cat left in the house. Did the cat survive?
28 days, that cat survived.
It stayed in this.
Still here?
It stayed in this part of the house, and Brian let us know afterwards that there was a cat, and we didn't think it had made it. But when I came down here a couple days after, I saw a cat, and I didn't know at the time. But afterwards, I reached out to him and was like, "Hey, I think I saw your cat in the house," and the cat survived 28 days, and they was able to find it in the house and caught it, and it's alive and well and back home with Brian and his family. So a very resilient cat that went for a little ride inside the house, I believe.
What
His name is Karma. Ironic.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He survived.
We would have made an attempt to rescue the cat if we'd known it was in there at the time. He never told us that there was still a cat in there.
Looking back on it, that time spent getting the dogs that swept away, I'm thankful that we were able to do that. But also, at the end of the day, coming back here and seeing nothing left, it's like, it was close. Like, it could have broke away at any moment with us, and who knows how that would have went. But talking to Justin and Shelley, we all agree that if it happened again tomorrow, we would do the exact same thing.
Wow. I mean, on behalf of the 13-member commission up here, I think this is why we do what we do as volunteers, to see that type of stuff. It's just overwhelming, the dedication of the men and women of this agency, top to bottom, just overwhelming. Wow. That being said, the commission has put together a resolution to honor these men and women, and hard to get one for everybody. So our plan is to put this resolution in all the region offices, framed and signed. If you'd indulge me, I'd like to read this resolution into the record, please. By Commissioners Jimmy Granbery, Chris Devaney, Greg Davenport, Tommy Woods, Ford Little, Rhonda Moody, Stan Butt, Monty Ballou, Brad Box, David Wright, Bill Cox, Chip Saltzman, Molly Childress, David Sawyers, Charlie Hatcher, and ex-officio Governor Bill Lee. Resolution to honor and commend the officers and staff of Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency for their service during Hurricane Helene, a powerful region of Florida on September 27th, 2024, bringing severe high winds, heavy rainfall, widespread flooding, causing unprecedented destruction. Whereas upon making landfall, the hurricane began to traverse overland across Georgia as a Category 2 hurricane into the Appalachian Mountain Range as a tropical storm, depositing record-breaking amounts of rainfall across the communities in western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee. Whereas although the hurricane's winds had largely diminished to tropical storm strength, by the time it reached eastern Tennessee, the storm delivered a broad and deadly swath of heavy rainfall and flash flooding, which placed communities throughout East Tennessee and deadly swath of heavy rainfall and flash flooding, which placed communities throughout East Tennessee in peril. Record rainfall caused rivers to overflow and produce flash flooding, road washouts, and even landslides. Whereas Tennessee's gallant firstly serving on behalf of Tennessee Wildlife Resources agencies, and whereas in the face of unprecedented disaster, the law enforcement officers of the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency selfishly rushed to action to rescue those threatened by rising waters, provide critical aid to impacted communities, and mitigate damage to property and possessions. Whereas TWRA heavy equipment crews served tirelessly alongside water, repair damage to public property, and support administrative staff, human resources, dispatch countless others to ensure the agency was able to operate the highest and most efficient level possible. Whereas the actions of these law enforcement officers and TWRA staff members during and following Hurricane Helene significantly contributed to the overall safety, resiliency, and ongoing recovery of those impacted by providing security and community assistance in the aftermath of the storm. And whereas the courage, dedication, bravery, perseverance displayed by these law enforcement officers exemplifies a high standard for law enforcement service and is appropriate for this commission to permanently commemorate and recognize their efforts and character. Therefore, be it resolved, the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission recognizes, honors the law enforcement officers and staff of the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency for their tremendous service and dedication to the state of Tennessee, its citizens during the response and to the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Whereas the commission honors and commends each person for their courage and unwavering dedication to their community in the face of extreme adversity. Be it further resolved, the commission extends its deepest gratitude and respect to each officer for their sacrifices, hard work, heroic actions, which embody the true spirit of public service and commitment to the safety and well-being of others. It therefore resolved on this 6th day of December, 2024. And I would entertain a motion to accept this resolution in the records.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Commissioner Cox. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion unanimously passes. Is Shelley here? Shelley, could you come forward, and we'd like to give this resolution to you to make sure that it's given to the other region offices. And
Why don't you have Prater? Why don't you have her staff come up too?
yeah, bring your staff up here, please. Come on, guys. We'll get a picture later. I just want to go ahead and give this to you right now. Can you identify all these people? I know some of them were in the video, but they were a little wet. Matt Cameron.
Justin Peterson.
James Peterson.
Jeff Prater.
Jeff Prater. Congratulations, gentlemen. Thank you, sir. Fortunately, as a commission, we do a lot of business and we'll continue with our business. And fortunately, we don't have a lot of situations like this, but when it does happen, it's just 6 years on the commission. This is beyond anything that I've ever experienced and just makes you proud to be a Tennessean and affiliated with this agency. This time I'd offer any commissioner that would like to say something accordingly. Commissioner Woods.
Thank you, Chairman. I represent most of the devastate pen. And to see the pictures and to see the film is something, but to see it firsthand, the devastation is something else. It is. And I'm not sure that I could have brought myself to get in a boat and going in that water, seeing it that day like our officers did. I really can't. And it just makes us as a commission so proud of the agency that we serve. They don't serve us, we serve them. And we're proud each and every day of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Woods. Anybody else like to say anything?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I agree with Commissioner Woods. Y'all get tired of me reminiscing, but I've been doing this, hanging around these guys and being associated with them since 2001. And in 2005, a big group of our officers went to New Orleans for Hurricane Katrina to do similar work. The Waverly, we had the floods. These guys do this all the time, and they're not just good at what they do. They're heroes. I was looking around the room while that film was playing, and all the time as you see a group, there's a half a dozen people looking at their phone, unconcerned about what's going on. No, none of y'all are on your phone. Everybody had a look of concern on your face. I am so proud to be associated with this group. You're heroes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox. Anybody else?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Butt.
I'm gonna like, we had friends, close friends that were there. And our officers responded early to the request before a lot of the devastation and were able to assist in saving the lives of a lot of people who probably the outcome would have been a lot worse. And we appreciate their willingness to jump into action and respond. And we had close friends in E-Town that were keeping us abreast of what was going on. The agency sent pictures to us as a commission to show the bravery and response of our officers. And to see that, it's very emotional. And so I want to commend all of those who did that. And I'm like Commissioner Cox. It's a privilege to serve for those who are willing to put their lives in harm's way for the benefit of others. Thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Blue?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, you know, being a TWRA officer, I think it's not what you do, but it's who you are. It's not what you do, but it's who you are. It's not a job. It's their life. It's what they do, and they did it. So thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not surprised at all by this. I started my career with two of the people in that video, and just the character and the professionalism of these wildlife officers, and they represent all the wildlife officers across the state. So this is a terrible thing that happened, but this video is a beautiful thing because it shows the character, the importance, the value of these wildlife officers, and they are extremely undervalued. So I'm just grateful that they did again what they always do, and I'm grateful that you all got to see that represented in that powerful video. Thank you.
Commissioner Butt, if I'd indulge you to please close this portion of the meeting out with a prayer for all our 750 employees, please.
Our God and Father in heaven, truly we recognize Thee as Almighty God. Father, in moments like this and observing that, just devastation and destruction, it's almost impossible for us to understand how and why these things happen. But Father, we recognize Thee as a higher power, and we're so thankful that we have men and women who are willing to step up from humanity's standpoint to care for others. We're also acknowledging Thy word when it says we're to do good unto all men. And that has been witnessed in the face of this devastation, both here in Tennessee and in North Carolina and the surrounding areas. Father, we continue to thank all of our agency staff. We continue to ask for their protection and keep them from harm. But Father, we recognize their bravery and willingness to address welfare of others. And we're so for wisdom for not only for our staff and our agency, but for the commission as we consider all of the rules and regs and laws that affect the operation of this agency and this great state. Father, again, we recognize the Savior made beyond pain and their beers. And Father, we pray that we can use this opportunity to recognize again the bravery and the commitment that our officers make, and we continue to pray for their safety, and we honor them this day. This in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Butt. Now I'll ask Colonel Dale Grandstaff to come to the podium, please, to make a couple of presentations.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Commissioners, and thank you for those kind words for all of our law enforcement officers and employees of this agency. It is truly an honor and a great place to work. I think you kind of saw that through the video and all the public outreach that we got from the efforts that everyone in this agency put forth during this time. As you can see from the presentation and video, there was amazing work done by TWRA employees during this flood event. There will be others recognized at a later date with commendations and appreciation awards because there were so many from each division that did amazing things for people of East Tennessee. The agency, from the dispatchers to the IT folks, to the engineering folks, the wildlife and fisheries folks, and the list goes on. But today we'd like to focus on 4 employees and their response to the first day of flooding on September 27th, 2024. These 4 employees are being given a Valor Award for their bravery in rescuing several individuals that day. A definition of valor is great courage in the face of danger. And we think all 4 of these individuals were courageous that day, and they essentially risked their lives to save others from the floodwaters caused by Hurricane Helene. As I say your name, please come up and stand by me. I know that Shelly probably doesn't want to come up here and stand in front of everybody again, but as I say your name, come on up. Here on the second day, on September 28, 2024, we were getting organized and sending teams out to check on people. This was chaotic at times, but it was more organized chaos. But the first day, September 27th, 2024, was go, 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 and help as many people as you could and as quickly as you could before the waters made it impossible to safely do it. Region 4 Communications Coordinator, Matt Cameron. Come on up. Here's a body cam screenshot. Come on up. Here's a body cam screenshot as he was assisting with pulling 2 men out of this tree. I watched this footage after the fact, and I got nervous as I watched it because this is one of the most dangerous positions you can be in on a boat. In swift water with debris and the possibility of engine failure can put you in seconds, could flip the boat. Matt assisted with getting these 2. Region 4 Major. Another screenshot of her and the man and the dogs out of the house, and also assisted in rescuing 2 men off a building and a tractor at the same location. The Deputy Director Ware and I were in my office in Nashville listening to the radio traffic most of the day. I called Shelly many times for updates, and she was always calm and poised even in the middle of this. But I knew it was getting bad when I said, "Shelly, what do you need?" Her reply was, "Send me everyone you got." Region 4, Lieutenant Jeff Prater. As you saw earlier in these body cam screenshots, Jeff thought nothing about jumping in the current to get this man safely out of his house, and at one point was knocked off his feet by debris and made his way back to the house to get this man to safety. Also, let's not forget about the pets. When the dogs came through the opening, he went after them and brought them to the boat to safety. I never saw panic in his face. Region 4, District 42 Wildlife Officer Justin Pinkston. I saved Justin for last because all of his body cam footage was from his camera and his perspective. I watched most of the footage from this day, and the one thing I noticed in all of the videos is that none of his coworkers or his passengers in the boat were panicked. In the moment, he was calm and focused on what needed to be done to get everyone out safely. When he was having engine trouble, he was still directing and focused. He did an amazing job running the boat and keeping everyone safe. And I think if you watch the video and you listen closely, a couple of times you hear that noise, that beep, that loud beep. And to anyone that drives a boat, you know there's trouble. And that engine had to be shut down a few times. And that's a dangerous position to be in. But they made it through it. This last screenshot was his perspective when he jumped in the water to help Lieutenant Prater and the homeowner. I watched the footage, and I do know after the fact, I listened to the footage when they were kind of off the boat and on the ground. Reality did set in for a few of you, and I know you realized what you had just done and thought that something like that had never happened before to you, and it was truly amazing to listen to that conversation after the fact. Thank you all for your bravery, your courage, and for representing this agency in such a positive way on this day, but every day you go to work. I now want to read the values of natural. Your actions during Hurricane Helene will undoubtedly have a lasting impact on the individuals and families whose lives you saved, as well as the reputation of the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. On behalf of the agency, the state, they're all going to get a Valor pin that they'll be able to wear on uniform for the rest of the career. It'll be in their Class A uniform. It'll remind them and others of what happened that day. Thank you, Commissioner Granbery. Any questions or anything from us?
Any comments from anybody on the commission? Questions?
You have one quick one. There's another group that hadn't been recognized. Before FEMA called for help, our director and his staff had already circled the wagons and were getting people organized ahead of the game. So when FEMA called, our guys were ready and they went immediately. They didn't have to call and get boats and all that. Director Maxidon got his guys ready to go before the fact. So it's a tribute to you too. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox. And I'll just add a little bit to that. He didn't get them ready. He already sent them. They were already on their way to East Tennessee before we got the order. And he knew it was a problem. You heard Colonel Grandstaff talk about Shelley, send everybody you got. Well, we sent everybody we got before we got the official word from TEMA and the state. So Colonel Grandstaff, Director Maxidon, thank you for that. And we appreciate it. Anybody else? Thank you again, Colonel. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
I think it's probably appropriate before we get into the business of the day. Why don't we take a 15-minute break? And I'd ask all the commissioners to go to the back. We're going to get a big group photo with our officers, if y'all would indulge me. Welcome back. And at this point, I'd like to call on Budget Chairman, Commissioner Bill Cox, to introduce the budget expansion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask Chief Jason Henegar, Fisheries, to come up.
Thank you, Chairman. Bringing a budget expansion request again today to the full commission. This is the same budget request presented yesterday. It's budget. It's the funding for invasive carp work that we do. We're asking for expansion for F-25 for population monitoring work and research, and that is 100% funded by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service funding, and then FY26 as well. This will cover our Tennessee Carp Harvest Incentive Program on the lower Mississippi River. These expansions are necessary due to the changes in funding from year to year in that grant and changes in research. So I just asked the Commission's approval on these budget expansions.
Okay, thank you, Chief Henegar. And are there any questions or comments? Since the Budget Committee voted to refer this budget expansion to the full commission today, we need to vote. I'll take the referral from Commissioner Cox as a motion, and do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Blue. Are there any questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Expansion passes. Chief Henegar, while you're at the podium, I think yesterday there was an oversight on another rule that you need to bring before us today for consideration next month.
Yes, I'm sorry for that oversight, but we'll be bringing rules next month for your review and vote. Those are rules 1660-0117 and 1660-0126. We'll cover the Rule 17 first, and this is rule concerning rules and regulations governing commercial use of wildlife. It's been brought to our attention recently that in this rule, originally there was only 2 species that was approved for the sale of meat in commercial markets in Tennessee. That was hybrid striped bass and trout. And due to the current market for fish sales and the use of that fish flesh, we want to add crappie, walleye, and striped bass to just better meet the current markets now. Only changes we have to 17. We also would like to make changes to 1660-0126. This is the fish farming, catch out operations, and bait dealers rule. And due to a change by the American Fisheries Society in their publication, names and scientific names of fish, they've changed some of the taxonomic names for largemouth bass, Florida bass, and a couple other species. And in this fish farming rule, we list by species what can be used in fish farming. We just need to update these names to better reflect what is being used by. And then also to this rule, we'd like to add a restriction of no live catfish over 34 inches that are caught from the wild to be imported to use in fish farming in the state of Tennessee. If you remember, several years ago, we had our commercial come to the agency and ask for a restriction on commercially over 34 inches to not allow to leave the water. There's a huge concern with trophy catfishermen of the harvest and use of these fish in catch out facilities and the impacts that it may have to our wild populations. We thought we had cleaned up some of the issues there just by regulating commercial fishermen. Since then, we've seen some issues from fish coming in from other states and maybe causing concern for other states and their populations. We've talked to several states and they're concerned about this as well. And then we also want to clean that up in the catch out facility portion of this rule as well. just the restriction of the sale of live catfish or importation of live catfish over 34 inches that have been harvested from the wild. They can still buy those from aquaculture facilities and meet the demand for their facilities. So at this time, that's all the changes I have to those two rules.
Okay, thank you, Jason. And we'll be discussing this and voting on this next month.
Yes, sir. I'll bring it back
Okay.
next
May
month.
I ask one quick question? Would you get to the list of fish? To be clear, those are fish that are legal to catch in Tennessee and sell.
No, sir. Those are fish that can be imported into the state of Tennessee. They're native fish in Tennessee. They can be imported in. Their flesh can be imported in and sold. We control the species of fish that can be caught in the state of Tennessee and commercially used in our commercial fishing proclamation. So there's a list in our commercial fishing proclamation that covers that. Fish that can be sold in the state.
All right, so if it's not to fish for crappie, let's say, and sell it to a restaurant, which it's not, correct?
Right.
So how are you gonna know if somebody imports crappie? How do you know where it was caught?
In our commercial proclamation and also in our fish farming rule, we have restrictions and requirements of paperwork and receipts that have to be caught or have to be kept that we can review at any time.
Okay.
And we've worked with our LE division and our legal division to develop these rule changes.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Commissioner Blue?
Hey, I like the catfish 34-inch, but I know we talked about it, and I've seen some cases in other states, but have we had a problem with that we've worked wise farming catfish where they're taking them out of state or to a private pond, or, I mean, those type of situations?
We have seen cases of fish being sold to facilities in Tennessee. There's not many. This license that regulates fish farms, catch out facilities, and bait dealers, it's one license. So it's hard to get to exactly how many facilities are doing what activity, because they can do all three of those activities under that one license. We have done some surveys, and we think there's only 22 facilities that are operating as fish farms and about 16 that are operating as catch-out facilities. Most of those catch-out facilities are for trout and for small catfish. You go catch fish, they fillet them for you, and you take them home to eat. Well, we do have a couple facilities that do these fishing derbies for larger catfish, but we don't feel like it's a huge deal. But throughout the region and throughout the there is quite a bit of these facilities that are out there that demand these bigger fish for what they're wanting to do.
And saying, do you think there'll be any changes coming in Tennessee rules and regs on skipjack? We were talked about previously on.
We are reviewing that. There's been some changes in Alabama, and we're reviewing what we have currently, and we may bring something in the future if needed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Buck.
I'm familiar with several catch-out facilities that have some of these derbies and tournaments, and I'd like to encourage our officers and LEs and for our staff to pass on to them to be a little more PR aware and not so confrontational on some of these guys. They try to obey the rules. They try to comply, and when our officers go around and check them, then I'd like to see them, just as a matter of courtesy, have a little more rapport when they do that. So I just wanted to put that in the record because I'm aware of some previous situations where it might not have been such. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Anybody else? Okay, at this time, before we get into the actual details of rulemaking, I'd like to recognize Mr. Mike Butler, the Tennessee Wildlife Federation, to come to the podium, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike Butler, Tennessee Wildlife Federation. Just wanted to take a quick moment to speak from the Federation's perspective on the proposed Rule 1660-0128 about the license increases. I think it's fair to say nobody on anything, whether it's pickup trucks, toothpicks, or gum, want to be asked to pay more for something they paid less for. But what concerned our board and our organization was when we started looking at the places where y'all have had to start cutting back. After watching the videos this morning, you're holding 20 plus law enforcement positions open. That's a great concern to us. All the other things that you've had to do are a concern. And so when I started thinking about how we wanted to convey our support for this, I started thinking about choices. And I started thinking about the fact that our organization has been alongside working with the agency on every license increase since they were founded in 1949. And if the decisions and choices that hadn't been made then hadn't been made around licenses, where would we be today? And this agency has a tremendous track record of success in the field of restoring wildlife, and we see that continue. So those are the large reasons. I would shift a little bit to say, in the letter we sent you, and I want to emphasize this, we have to find is not happy about the fact that there are folks that are being subsidized by anglers like Paddlecraft that are getting a free ride on the backs of fishermen. In addition to that, there are other areas where I think we can work together, and you have our commitment to do so. But we've been, we've fumbled around the issue of alternative funding sources together for 20 plus years. I've been doing this 29 years, and it started being discussed in the 90s. And it's time, I think, to try to really get serious. I know that people have been serious about having conversations, but there has to be something that changes the narrative to help find sources. Because if we're going to meet our fish and wildlife are facing historic challenges. We have 7 million people in this state, and that's not going to go down. It's only going to go bigger. And if you look around the state and what's happening, we still have a lot left intact that other states have lost. I would not want to live in the state of Ohio, for example. They don't have the diversity of wildlife and fish and hunting and fishing opportunities we have, in my opinion. So I think that once the new year starts, we would ask for an audience to sit down and really start talking about how we bring our collective impact to finding a solution around funding. Because I know that nobody here likes having to come up with these discussions and debates, but it happens around every 2 years. And it's I think the sportsmen would appreciate it as well. But from what we've heard, while nobody likes to pay more, like I said, I think you have our support. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mike. Director, would you please put the Federation's letter into the record of the minutes, please? This time I'd like to call on Commissioner Hank Wright, head of wildlife.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in receipt of a letter, and I think the broader commission, everyone has this, from the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation. I think you're aware of it. It might make sense for that to be entered into the record, and also perhaps someone read that.
Director, could you read the letter into the record, please, sir?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. It says, Dear Chairman Granbery, we appreciate the opportunity to provide input on the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission's proposed amendment on license and permit fees, which would be the first fee adjustment in 10 years. These modest license and permit fee adjustments would address agency deficits caused largely by inflation to better equip the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency to manage the state's fish and wildlife resources. Founded in 1989, the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation is the informed authority across outdoor issues and serves as the primary conduit for influencing public policy. Working with the Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus, the Governor's Sportsmen's Caucus, and the National Assembly of Sportsmen's Caucuses, CSF gives a voice to hunters, anglers, recreational shooters, and trappers on Capitol Hill and throughout state capitals, advocating on vital outdoor issues that are the backbone of our nation's conservation legacy. License sales and excise taxes on firearms, ammunition, archery equipment, fishing equipment, motorboat fuel, and other sporting-related goods accounts for the largest source of conservation funding in the United States. This user pays public benefits approach known as the American System of Conservation Funding, provides critical annual funding for the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency to manage fish, wildlife, and other public trust resources for all Tennesseans. It's been 10 years since the license and permit fees have been increased in Tennessee, while other southern states such as Mississippi in 2016, Kentucky in 2018, Louisiana in 2021, and North Carolina in 2024 have modernized their fee structures. With the dramatic inflation during this time period, a license fee increase in accordance with the Consumer Price Index would help the TWRA to keep up with the rising cost of conducting operations. Specifically, funding generated from an increase in license fees could be utilized to increase employee salaries as mandated by the state, attract, recruit, and train new staff, fund new positions, and improve infrastructure, purchase and maintain equipment, complete backlog projects, and fund rapidly increasing operating expenses. The current funding structure does not provide many options to increase revenue to keep up with the rising operating costs, with license fees and associated matching federal funds constituting most of TWRA's budget. For example, only 0.4% of the TWRA's FY26 budget consists of general fund dollars, reinforcing the critical role that sportsman-generated dollars play in enabling the TWRA to successfully execute their mission. Furthermore, the current lack of diversification in TWRA's funding model opens the door to future conservation around the vast positive impact and financial relief that a dedicated conservation funding mechanism could bring to the TWRA and Tennesseans alike. In closing, CSF strongly supports the proposed license fee adjustment. Revenue generated from the proposed adjustments will directly support the TWRA and its mission to conduct science-based fish and wildlife management, protect Tennessee's sporting heritage. Thank you for considering our comments. Please let us know if you have questions or would like additional information. Sincerely, Connor Barker, Coordinator, Southeastern States Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. So at this time, we'll get into the rulemaking hearing. I just, for the record, will state that this commission, under the budget direction of Chairman Cox, has taken this issue very seriously. We've worked tirelessly over the last years and months to get to this point. A lot of hard work, a lot of phone calls, a lot of meetings over time. So we hear the public, we hear the caucuses, we hear the Federation. And so I just want everybody to know that we take this very seriously and we represent this commission in this state, and we understand who our constituents are, the 1 million folks in this state that have a hunting and fishing license. So we take this very seriously. So this time we're now moving in the rulemaking hearing section of the agenda today. I'm Commission Chair Jimmy Granbery, and I will serve as presiding officer for the rulemaking hearing. The Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission will be considering amendments to 5 rules. It is my understanding that these rules have been publicly noticed consistent with applicable law. They have been filed with the Secretary of State's office and have been made available on the public notice section of the agency's website. Agency staff have copied the proposals in red line for anyone that would like to have a paper copy. The order of the proceeding will be as follows. Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency staff will present information relative to the proposed rulemaking change or new rule. I'll recognize the agency staff member accordingly. Commission members will then be permitted to ask questions, provide comment on the proposed rule. Once the commission members have had the opportunity to speak, members of the public will be permitted to provide comment on the rule before the commission. All parties should identify themselves before speaking. As chair, I reserve the right to limit comments and discussion, especially in the cases of repetition. Generally, this will not be a question and answer session. Members of the public will have 3 minutes for their comment. And I might have misspoke yesterday. I said that your comments were yesterday would not be part of the public record. That was not true. They would be part of the public record, and we do have those comments. So if you spoke yesterday, your comments were heard and they were recorded. If you'd like to speak again on something differently, we welcome that opportunity. After the opportunity for comment, the commission will vote via a roll call vote. With the order of proceedings established, I will ask the Deputy Director, Frank Fiss, to come forward for the rule presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'm going to go in a little more detail today in that I'm going to cover all the bases of all the rules in question, but I'm not going to go very deep to each one. I'm going to give just showing the slides and letting you read for yourself in a lot of cases. But just want to review that today is the formal rulemaking hearing, and we still have a few more steps to go. Anything that happens that is approved ultimately will not take effect till July. We did receive public comments during the open comment period, about 190 comments plus additional letters and testimony yesterday. Sorry, I think I was the one that said we couldn't use yesterday's comment in the formal rule, but and we'll hear additional comments today. So we're going to cover all the changes that I spoke of yesterday are housed in 5 rules that our agency has, and you can see them there. I'm going to walk through the bits, just the changes, the major changes that are in each of those as I go through the presentation. So I'll start with the migratory bird rule. We're throughout these rules additionally clean up any language that's confusing. So there's a little bit of that work in there. And we have clarifying language throughout this section to define areas that are quota permit areas with marked locations, pools, and the blind hopping is not allowed. So you can read that better than I can, but that is an update of the bird rule. We also made some changes to the regs on the governing hunts. Cleaned up language again. We're now requiring only that single WMA permit. So we had to make this adjustment so that those other ones we deleted are no longer in the rule. And we clarified that a WMA permit is required to train dogs for all participants in field trials on WMAs. We've removed the requirement for a post-hunt waterfowl survey, and we've added a quail quota hunt application process. This is something new that I guess the first one will be at Bridgestone Firestone. We'll look forward to that. Made several changes to Rule 1660.01.14. Again, fix any minor changes. We've clarified that a guide may not carry a gun while guiding unless the guide possesses a valid hunting license, appropriate species permit, quota permit if required for the hunt, and the WMA permit. There's some question about that. We've added that OHVs are among the vehicles that have to have muffler and spark arresters on TWRA lands. And we are now marking trails as open. And if they're not marked as open, they're closed to all traffic. This gets permit here. We're requiring that one adult, if someone 16 years or older, on each vehicle must possess an OHV permit on North Cumberland WMA, and there's no exceptions for the permit for holding other license permits we offer. We've also established a reduced cost permit for people who have a sportsman's license of any annual or a lifetime, and that fee would be $40. Now I want to jump into just the dollar amounts for all the licenses that some of these we discussed yesterday, and there's a lot more than that, as you'll see. So here are the resident licenses. They're generally up 27 to 30% depending on the license. Here's the supplementals. We talked about shifting to species-specific supplemental licenses. Since these are new licenses, there's no current value. Shifting to species-specific supplemental licenses. Since these are new licenses, there's no current value. Here are our sportsman's license changes. Again, the sportsman's annual is up 12%. The others, our intent was to go up about 28%. And we had a mistake in the file. 80. Changes to these permanent licenses are listed here. Here are the changes to the lifetime sportsman's license fees. These all are going up according to CPI. by license type. The under 3 and the adopted under 13 licenses are only going up 6% because they were recently changed just 2 years ago. Here are the new non-resident licenses that we are offering and their prices. This continues with the species supplementals. And here are the sportsman's license options for. Okay, we'll switch over to our WMA and designated area permits and fees. We've created the new WMA permit that's for residents and non-residents, an individual field trial permit. This is the permit that the field trial organized event. We made no changes to our fishing lakes. One of the main reasons for that is we're coordinating pretty closely with TDEC and other partners about what to get all of those little lake fees until we complete that conversation. And on Lake Bird, we just recently put those permits in place, so we're not interested in that. We reached out to our partner at Gatlinburg who stocks trout and shares some licenses with us. They were not interested in raising their rates at this time. They have another fee structure or another funding source available to them for that. And we've created the new resident and non-resident Tellico, Citico permits for trout fishing down on Tellico and Citico. The Reelfoot blinds and the big sand or West Sandy blinds, we've got those permits listed at $79. There's no cost for the sign-ons for either of those. And here are the North Cumberland OHV permits that we discussed yesterday. There was a lot of interest in this. The commission requested that I collect some more information on this. So I'm going to move through this and we'll have a little section at the end here on OHV that makes it easier to follow. Moving right along to our other high impact habitat permits. These have gone up in that 28% range. Here's Reelfoot preservation permits. They are up, I think I said 56%. They hadn't been changed in several years. And now we're getting into all the miscellaneous licenses that I've not really shared in any of my presentations. All gone up in that same range of, for an average of 28%. Here's the animal importation and commercial wildlife preserve permits. Commercial fishing permits, licenses and permits. We didn't change the road fish permit supplementals because it's kind of a new program, and there can be years where a commercial fisher may need to buy all 3 of those permits depending on how the populations are behaving at that time. Here's the non-resident side of that, same commercial fishing permits and licenses. Wholesale fish dealers, mussel dealers. Here's the resident and others. Here's the resident and non-resident fish dealers, fish farmers, bait dealers. These are all up again with CPI. More commercial licenses, and you see the changes we made there with CPI if they had a cost at all. Here's our exhibitor permits. These are with CPI, propagation permits, falconry permits. And here, the one at the bottom here is where we combine the taxidermist and fur buyer permit. The previous permit was $122 for just the taxidermist, I believe, and it's gone up, but it will now include the fur buyer, and there's not very many of those people, but some important ones in the audience. We have just a couple of changes here. I mentioned this migratory bird permit change to $2 to help our federal grant just the taxidermist, I believe, and it's gone up, but it will now include the fur buyer, and there's not very many of those people, but some important ones in the audience. And we operate several firing ranges on our at our WMAs. We've changed the fee. We've added a fee for the ranges. We've restructured it. We used to have tier 1, 2, and 3. We just call them firing ranges now. For our hunter education centers, Bartlett, Stones River, and John Sevier, we've increased those, and we've created a new all range permit so that you could go to any of those hunter education centers or any of our WMAs where we're charging and use that annual permit. Guide licenses have gone up with the CPI, and our commercial fishing industry reached out to us. They were having trouble with everyone having different start and end dates on their licenses. There had some potential to get in trouble with people not remembering to buy their license. It was better when that community all was on the same date. So they asked us to go back to the expiration date of June 30th. So we changed the rule to accommodate that. And lastly, I mentioned that we increased our boating fees by 22%, which is all CPI will allow. And these would be the new rates adjusted by 22%. So that's a lot. If there's anyone wants me to go over any of them with funding at North Cumberland, and you asked me to show Cora's proposed amount. So
yeah, I would continue on, Frank,
okay.
And then we'll
okay, let's
discussion.
Okay. So I mentioned that we reached out to our wildlife management managers at North Cumberland, and they have provided us estimates of what it costs to maintain all that land up there. Kind of goes into 3 buckets: trails, roads, and infrastructure, which is mostly ways to get in and around the water. So if you look at trail maintenance costs, it can be on average $2,500 per mile, 50 miles of trail that they would like to work on. That there's that estimate there at that rate. If they could do all of them, if they could maintain all of them once, it would be $875,000. Most trails require 2 or 3 times a year, though, and that dollar amount would be $2.6 million. If we had to contract out, it would cost us more. That's where that $42 million estimate comes from. We shift over to road maintenance. They've got 350 miles of that as well, and just the gravel at $7,000, between $25,000 and $30,000 a mile. On the culverts and bridges, that those can vary a lot based on the site that they're trying to work, but they range from $13,000 to $20,000 or up to $500,000 for a bridge. And those water crossings are pretty important in the management of this area. They've identified 158 water crossings that they're concerned about. This isn't all water crossings. So a few examples in recent history: they've worked at Sand Lick, Coontail, and Hatfield, and you see the totals there of what it costs them to put. At Sand Lick, just a 10-foot culvert cost them $13,000. Coontail, $70,000 for a box culvert, and a single bridge at Hatfield Creek was $375,000. So there's definitely there's a lot of need for funding to maintain this area in a way we'd like to. So they decided, I said that the estimate we had, we were pretty confident we could generate $3 million with that price structure, and we asked them to give us an idea how that would be spent in a year, and this is what they provided. They could look at their trails one time per year, although they'd like to do that too. They could work on their roads at that rate, and that's year rotation on the roads. And they might be able to get 2 bridges in a year at 500,000 and maybe put in 25 bottles. That's their estimation at this time. And what we would like to do is collect the fees, put the plan together based on the fees we collect and do the best we can with the money that's collected. And lastly, you requested to see Corps' recommendation. I'll remind you that this was the agency's recommendation right here with the daily annual fees for riding. And the Corps, that's not theirs. Hold on a second. I've got their, let me go back one. It's going to let me go back one. There we go. So I just caught a mistake in this thing. Theirs was actually supposed to be 50% on the 50% less than what we have. So we're at 200 here and 500. They are supposed to, their recommendation for that annual should be 100 and 250. Sorry about that. And they did not have a recommended change to the daily. They did not have a change to the sportsman supplemental. So with that, I'll sorry again about that mistake, but that's all I had.
Thank you, Deputy Director Fish, I know this has taken an enormous amount of time, and the commission is greatly appreciative of your efforts. At this time, does anybody on the commission have any specific questions for Deputy Director Fish?
For any of it?
Just a question, not deliberation, just a question.
I thought we had like 700 or 800 miles of trails. When we rode up there, he told us how many miles of trail, and it was even up to 900. You got 350 on here. Is that indication we're going to close some trails, or is my information wrong?
Yeah, and I may have to call on staff, but we've got maintained 200 miles. I'm gonna look at John. Let's just get John, you or Joe go to the microphone on that and give some specific details.
John Mike, Region 4 Wildlife Program Manager. Part of that, we're starting to add in part of the Ed Carter, but overall, where we went and developed a trail, and there are some trails that we're going to make seasonal. Some trails we're going to, but once we work with Keith Thomas and his assistant managers up there for each unit, we came up with 350 miles of trails that we're going to maintain and manage. Then also in that, we looked at the main access roads. Now, some of the old coal haul roads that have a really good gravel bed, they're already in good haul roads that have a really good gravel bed. They're already in good shape. They're going to be easy to maintain. Hunters use them to get in and out. Fishermen use them. There's 300 initially before we done our digital trail map.
And you think you can get over 350 miles or 700 miles how quickly? A year?
No, it's going to take a little while. I mean, part of this is we're starting almost from scratch as far as the amount of money. Also, we're looking at contracting, and in the contracting, we're going to have to work with different companies up there, as probably Campbell County mayor and commissioners can tell you. We got a lot of folks up there that were in the logging business, that were in the mining business, that have the equipment and the capabilities to do some of this work. So we would like to contract a lot of this work that's going to put more money back into the local economy.
So you're going to keep 350 or so open regular trails and then 350 access roads. So if there's, and the others you said you're going to close, and they're going to be permanently closed and not going to be used, and we're going to maintain what we got money to maintain, and we're going to close the rest of them.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question for Deputy Director Fish?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Box? That's all right.
Let Hayne go.
Go ahead, Commissioner Wright.
Either one. Thank you, sir. Director Fiss, I just had a question. You mentioned 158 stream crossings. Is that 158 existing and we'll pick up more as we add more trails, or as we add responsibility for the additional trails?
Those are the ones that are identified that are needs now. I
Okay.
mean, if whether or not additional trails are created, that's beyond my knowledge.
Okay. Yeah, just using your figures, if half of those were the bottomless culvert design and half were bridges, and using the average cost of each of those structures, that's $40 million worth of crossings just for those 158 crossings. Just for those 158 crossings. Just for interest's sake.
Do you want me to explain how we developed that?
Yeah, please. That'd be
Okay.
Good for the commission.
What we work with our GIS folks in Nashville. Joe Elkins headed part of this. He's our GIS guy here in Region 4. He worked with Tracy, and in that we developed their digital trails. Then our fisheries folks, where they do their data collection and assessment on the streams at North Cumberland, they had a map of all the streams and some of the crossings. And Tracy overlaid the trail map with that aquatic map of North Cumberland. And that's how those major crossings. Now there's more, but those are the higher priority.
Mr. Box?
I apologize if y'all talked about this yesterday. I was absent, but we had a chance to look at some of these since a year or so ago. And it seems to me if we don't find funding to address these environmental impact concerns for these water crossings, then we're going to be at risk for some state or federal entity to come in and shut the whole place down. And so if we don't find the money to do this work, then we're really at risk. So I just want to get your thoughts on that.
That's our concern. And also one thing to mention on all these crossings, we'll have to work with TDEC to get an A route. And also in the current program we have right now, Rusty Dunn, who is our OHV manager, using the federal funding. TDEC is basically the administrator and auditor of that. So they look at everything that we do. So they're aware of some of the situations and they're being very patient with us trying to get these worked out.
Anybody else?
Would you add definition or what the acronym AOP entails
Okay.
and why that comes about?
I shouldn't have told you that this morning when he asked about crossings. And part of these crossings, we have a really good contact with a lady that's with the Cherokee National Forest. She's their hydrologist. Some of the pictures we sent you all, that is an aquatic organism passageway, is the definition of that. And part of that goes along as far as being an organic or aquatic passageway is a traditional culvert, which has a bottom that it can hinder the movement of not only fish, minnows, but also crayfish, different types of mussels, other aquatic organisms that need to traverse that stream. A bottomless culvert or that aquatic passageway is basically leaving the stream bottom as is. Now, there's different designs, as y'all probably saw. Some of them are very expensive. Some of them are somewhat affordable, I guess is the proper term. But in that's our main goal and part term. But in that's our main goal. And part of it is trying to get these four-wheelers out of the creek. Because even in low rain event periods, sometimes the creeks are muddy, and part of that's because the four-wheelers are going through the creek and the mud coming off the four-wheelers, muddying the stream. So we're trying to get them out of the stream.
Anybody else? I had one question for General Counsel Grimes. There's legislation that exists relative to the OHVs and the fees in North Cumberland. Could you read that into the record and give us a brief explanation of that, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Title 70, Chapter 9, Section 106, relative to the Tennessee All-Way Vehicle Act. It it was enacted in 2004 originally, but that statute says that the funds received by the agency under the chapter shall be used exclusively for the purpose of operation and management of the off-highway motor vehicle program authorized under this chapter. The director may use funds collected under the chapter to acquire by purchase, gift, grant, bequest, devise, or lease the fee or any lesser interest in land, development right, easement, covenant, or other contractual right necessary to achieve the purposes of the chapter. Is in be self-funded. Use of any highway vehicle program be self-funded. Use of any existing or future agency resources, revenues, or funding not derived by or through the OHV program to administer or enforce this program shall constitute a diversion of funds under Title 71-401. Any future federal funds existing or future agency resources, revenues, or funding not derived by or through the OHV program to administer or enforce this program shall constitute a diversion of funds under Title 71-401. Any future federal funds after.
Okay, thanks, Tori. Does anybody have any questions of General Counsel on that statute? Seeing none, did you have a question, Commissioner Salzman? Okay, at this time, before we get into deliberation, I would ask those that have requested to speak to come to the microphone, state your name for the record, and we'll have 3 minutes to discuss. And the first on the list is Mr. Justin Jones.
Thank you. Justin Jones, Ride Royal Blue Campground. I don't have a whole lot to add to what I shared yesterday. There are a couple things I'd like to touch on real quick. One is I've heard some narrative out there from different people that there's a perception that a lot of our customers have $100,000 pickup trucks, $100,000 RVs, $40,000 side-by-sides, so they may not be that price sensitive. But I just want to point out that that's a pretty small portion of our customer base. We have a very diverse customer base. Many of them are blue-collar, working-class people. A lot of them come in groups, and they'll rent one of our 3 or 4 bedroom houses, and they'll split that up between 2 or 3 different groups of people so that the cost is for them. Many of them come and rent one of our 1-bedroom cabins, and they come, candidly, they come in an old pickup truck with an old 4-wheeler cabins, and they come, candidly, they come in an old pickup truck with an old 4-wheeler by side. So we have a diverse group of customers. There are some wealthier customers that might be less price sensitive, but I just want to stress that that's Commissioner Salisbury was asking about yesterday. 99% of our customers already have their own ATV or side by side. They don't rent from us. So the person that's coming and spending $400 or $500 a day to rent a side by side, they're only going to be looking at the daily permit cost, which right now is proposed at $50, which we've said is probably reasonable at this point in time. So they're not going to be looking at the annual price or the 7-day price. Now, if they decide they like the sport and they buy a side by side, then at that point they're going to start shopping the other permit prices and different riding areas to see what's out there. I'd like to point out that my aunt owned the campground for 16, 17 years before I bought it from her. She, it grew every year. She actually raised her lodging prices a little bit each year. Since I've owned it, we haven't raised the prices at all because our bookings have been declining. And actually this year, for the first time in Ride Royal Blue's almost 20-year history, we actually reduced the prices of some of our cabins and RV. Fourthly, I'd just like to say I hope and pray again that you'll strongly consider Cora's proposal until we can see, how much money is actually coming in from OHV riders. I think it's a good place to start, and thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I don't see anybody else that has requested to speak that might have already spoken yesterday. Your comments yesterday are part of the record. So if nobody else wishes to speak, we'll move on with the agenda. So at this time, commission members, what we're going to do is we're going to take all the rules in a 2-tiered approach. So what we're going to talk about is everything but the OHV fees, except any amendments or any changes, and vote on those amendments and then move forward to the OHV portion of the agenda. So at this time, does anybody have any discussion or amendments they would like to make to any of the rules without, separate from the OHV fees? Commissioner Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In our information, the last meeting 3 or 4 months ago, whatever it was, Columbia, I brought up the senior license package, and our senior licenses, for example, the senior hunting and fishing annual license that our under 65 group pays $42 for is proposed to be $5. The permanent senior hunting and fishing license, which is a license that's proposed at $62, means that a 65-year-old versus a 64 can buy a permanent license that he can hunt, fish for the rest of his life, excluding some special permits. I'm not so far, but like the elk or the application for ducks blinds or whatever you have to pay for. If you do the expected life expectancy of people now is about 79 or 80 years old, let's say 15 years at $62 is $4.30 a year. And that's unfair. And which means that other people are subsidizing this. The non-resident senior sportsman annual is $131, which means that a senior sportsman non-resident can come and hunt for what our under 65 are paying $185 for at $131. So I've got, I think it's this agency we're talking about budgets, and this agency is not in the financial condition to be giving away licenses, and I consider it to be a giveaway. And I don't want to pick on the seniors, but these licenses are the ones that are the most obvious underfunded or underpriced licenses. And based on that, I have a proposed amendment that the non-resident senior sportsman's annual is proposed at $131 be raised to $270, which is half of the non-resident sportsman's annual license. 64-year-old pays $540. My proposal for a senior pays $270, 50% off. The senior hunting and fishing annual license that is proposed to be $5, make it $21, which is 50% of the 64-year-old that buys a license. The senior sportsman's annual, where a sportsman license at 64 years old is $185. I propose that the senior discount be to $95, which he gets all the rights and privileges as the guy a year younger pays $185 for. The senior hunting and fishing permanent license, $62 license for the rest of your life, I propose to delete that license. There is no equivalent license for anybody under 65 years old to have that same license. And we're trying to get these simplified and get this package matched up. Not only is it $4 a year, $5 a year for the rest of his life, there's no equivalent license to base 50% on. Therefore, I propose to delete that license out of the package. I don't know where it came from, but that seems like to me that needs to be deleted. So that's my amendment, Mr. Chairman.
So thank you, Commissioner Cox, for that. Before we proceed, Deputy Director Fish, there are some legal restrictions as to the amounts at which we can increase based on a CPI cap. Did you have time to refer to that to know what Commissioner Cox was asking for?
Yeah, I did. When we focused on changing all the licenses, on average, the entire package was a 28% projected increase in revenue. Now CPI was 1 6. So we do have a little wiggle room there. I don't believe these additional fees for the senior licenses that Commissioner Cox mentioned would put us foul of that.
Okay.
And the permanent license, we did mention that we wanted to keep things as similar as possible for symmetry to understand everything. And that permanent license is an oddball for sure. It is a legacy license that we've carried, and we could offer that same senior to buy a lifetime senior license. So there is an alternative there at a different price point. So just for your knowledge on that.
Okay.
One more thing that I wanted to mention, the amount of money difference between what I'm proposing and what's on it now is north of $600,000. So it's not a small number. And with us looking for money anywhere we can get it, pinching pennies, that is not a small number. So I think it's significant. Thank you.
Commissioner Cox, thank you for those amendments. For the record, so we can potentially get a second on that, could you recant the 4 proposals that you're bringing forward as a motion?
My amendment is to the senior hunting and fishing annual be $21. It's proposed to be $5. The senior hunting fishing permanent license will be deleted. Your senior sportsman's annual license will be half or very close to half of the $185 that someone under 65 pays at $95. The non-resident senior sportsman's annual $270, which is half of the under 65 amount that we've got on the book.
Okay, y'all have heard the motion by Commissioner Cox. Do I have a second?
Second.
I've got a question. Okay, second by Commissioner Butt. Questions from the commission. I'll start to my left, Commissioner Saltzman.
Commissioner Cox, you are in fact a senior.
Aye.
And I just wanted to check that. Okay, thanks.
Very much so.
And Commissioner Saltzman, I resemble that remark as well. Any other questions to my left?
What about discussion?
Well, no, we're doing that right now. So starting down at the far end, Commissioner Wright, I'll start with you and work this way. Anybody have a question or comment on the amendment in a second?
Yes, sir.
All right, Commissioner Butt.
While I am constantly reminded that I'm the youngest of the senior commissioners, and it's my belief that all of us who are capable and have been hunters all our life won't mind contributing to the success of the agency with these minor changes. And so I completely support the amendment by Commissioner Cox.
Thank you, Commissioner Butt. Any other comments from the commission? You've heard the motion and we've got a second. Further discussion. This is the voice vote. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? Aye. So just do a roll call. Let's, Mary, do a roll call vote, please.
Monty Blue?
No.
Brad Box?
Aye.
Stan Butt?
Yes.
Wally Childress? Bill Cox?
Aye.
Chris Devaney?
Aye.
Ford Little? Rhonda Moody?
Aye.
Chip Saltzman?
Aye.
Tommy Woods?
Aye.
Hank Wright?
No.
Jimmy Granbery?
Aye. I think the ayes have it.
9-3, the ayes have it.
Thank you very much, Mary. So at this point, we've covered all the rules and is there any other rule issues other than the OHV fees that need to be discussed or amended? Seeing none, we'll now go to the rule portion of the OHV fees. And do I have a motion or an amendment to the proposal from the agency? Commissioner Saltzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually do have an amendment to the AOHV rules. First of all, I'd like to say that really appreciate all the hard work by the agency. Also really appreciate all the folks in Campbell County that came down here to talk about it. One of the things I didn't mention yesterday, 25 years ago, I had a meeting in the governor's office with a new state senator, Ron Ramsey, and a state representative from Campbell County named William Baird. We talked to Hack Ayers about it, and for the first time I heard the word adventure tourism. That's the first time I heard the word, was 25 years ago. Could never imagine, because we were talking about the same things y'all were. Mining, lumber was starting to kind of slow down, and trying to figure out how to get tourism to that part of the state. Lumber was starting to kind of slow down, and trying to figure out how to get tourism to that part of the state. Never could imagine that this would be a discussion 25 years later. What I'd like to do is have a proposed amendment. I don't know, Frank, did you have time to put this on the board, or do I just need to walk through it?
We would need a break so that we
Okay.
can put it, and we'll correct the TWRA recommendation as well. We'll be able to show everything, but I can't work live.
Yeah, okay. So I'll just kind of verbally talk about it, then we can have discussion among the commission, and then we can go back and put it on the board. But the motion is to amend the OHV fees from current status to a 3-year gradual increase, starting in year 1 with the recommendations of $150 to $350 for the annual, and $20 for the daily, and $50 for the daily, with discussion for a 3-day and a 7-day.
Microphone. Sorry, a little loud.
Oh, we have a motion and a second, and I seeing no further discussion or questions from the commission on the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, hang on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I'm not following the numbers. I'm for a 3-day and a 7-day and adjusting our numbers, but can we go through what the numbers are going to be that
Absolutely. So
suggested?
year 1 for the resident daily would be $20. Non-resident would be $50. We would have a 3-day resident for $50, a non-resident for $125, a 7-day $100 resident, $250 non-resident, and then the annual would be $150 for resident, which is in line with core recommendation Campbell County suggested. The next year, year 2, we would go up 50% on the annuals only, keep the daily, 3-day, and 7-day the same. And then year 3, we would end up with the agency recommendation of $200 for the annual, $500 for the non-resident. What this will allow us to do is have data from year 25 and 26 to make an informed decision at that time whether we wanted to continue increase in year 3. That time, if we thought the increases were enough, we could stop it with the commission's vote. And if not, it would go up to where recommendations of the HCR today in 2027. What I would like to do for discussion after discussion is take a break, put this on the screen so everybody can see it.
Okay, Commissioner Little, is that okay? We're going to take a break and let them put it on the slide.
I think that makes total sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Any other comments before we take about how much time you need, Frank?
5-10 minutes.
Okay, let's say 10. Let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back at 11:30, and we'll have a new slide, and then we'll vote on the amendment. Thank you very much. All right, welcome back, and I believe Director Fiss, you have a couple of slides for us, please, sir.
I do. First of all, I'll remind everyone what the TWRA's original proposal was of a daily, annual, and a guide license. And then we have the correct CORA proposal here. Sorry about that mistake earlier. Theirs is identical except for the resident, non-residents are at half on the annual fee. So the proposal that we heard for a graduated change, all the changes will be seen in highlight here. We would start in the first year, which would start in FY26 at July 1, 25. Start at an annual of 150, 300 for the resident, non-resident, 200 for the non-resident 7-day. Just watch that one will change. Then in E2, that goes up to 175 for the annual and 400 for non-resident. In year 3, we're at 200 and 500 and 250 for the 7-day non-resident, and all the while the daily and 3-day do not change.
Okay, Commissioner Saltzman, is this any different from your original amendment?
We made some slight changes in the break, but I'm happy with this amendment to 1660-01-28 as stated up on the screen.
So what we had a motion a second on was different from what we're now need a new amendment.
So I'd like to restate my amendment to 1660-08-28 as an amendment on the screen that Chairman Fiss has.
Okay, you've heard the amendment to the amendment. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cox. Is there any discussion from the commission?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Rice.
Just had an observation and some comments. Just for the commission's knowledge, I mean, I think everybody knows this, but we've been using hunting license dollars and matching funds for our funding for this. Based on what council read, that is Tennessee law or statute that we have to follow, we can't use those funds. We have to use funds from the user. And so we're not only going to lose those dollars, but with the amendment, we're going to reduce what agencies spent a year or more researching on what it would cover or what we need to cover these expenses. So the question would be, are users and OHV users and riders okay with a greatly reduced number of miles because I think we're going to have to stair step miles of trail that are open. I mean, what would a user that comes in prefer? 60 miles of trails that are open and a lower fee, or 250 miles of trail or more that are open and a higher fee. So I think that's important for all of us to talk about and think about.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Director Fish, on this proposal, if we just compare year 1 for an example, how much revenue would that generate as proposed to the agency's proposal?
I'm just guessing now. We were at 500 on the non-resident annual, so that's what, 60%, maybe 60-70% of what we were looking for at first. So we're probably in the 2 million range
in total.
Yeah, and that's you watching me estimate that. There's not hard math behind that, but that we were looking at 3.4 with our original with this proposal at the 200 and 500. Now we're at 150 and 300. So it's, again, it depends on the behavior of people with this new license structure in front of them. I think really the good part about this whole process is that we're going to have a transparent knowledge we're collecting and we can manage accordingly going forward. But I would say somewhere in the 70% of what we were intending to get first year.
Okay, any other?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Butt.
I would address this to Commissioner Saltzman. Knowing the makeup of our legislators are you concerned at all on a graduated scale with more urban metropolitan legislatures going back each year to get these increases? Or will that be built in and voted on one time if this amendment goes through? That'd be my question.
Commissioner Butt, my understanding is this will be voted on one time, the total package from the legislature. There'll be some discussion at the committee level on this, and maybe the subcommittee on level, and our team will have to walk them through each part of the total package of the licenses fees, including the OH fee. I think if we work through this, I think this gives us an opportunity to talk about, we are now able to look at these numbers every year and see, have we got it right? Are we raising too much money? Do we need to keep it lower? Do we need to go higher? I think this gives us great transparency. Legislature typically likes to have a transparent system where they can go back every year and check the numbers.
And one other comment, knowing how the public views even numbers and how sales work, I have a problem with rounding out that total to 500 on non-residents. I'd like to see us adjust that minor change, maybe to 485 or something like that from a perception standpoint. If that would be permissible with you.
I'll go 495 if that makes you feel better.
495, anything less than 500. You know, how many times do you see 299 instead of 300? I mean, something like that, you know, and perception is reality, as have we been told. So, you know, how about, as have we been told? So, you know, how about 245 and 495 on those two final?
Commissioner Budd, I think we're pretty good with the numbers as is, and your point is well taken, and you're exactly right on the marketing side. But I think we're good with our partner in Canada. I think I've achieved that goal. Everybody's a little bit, and I'd like to be voted on it as is.
Any other comments from the commission? Any questions? Director Maxedon, to Commissioner Wright's comment, how will y'all as a staff manage the reduction in miles if that becomes an issue because you just don't have the revenue based on statute to stand alone with that? How will you address that?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Wright made a good point. One of the things that we're going to see is a loss of revenue and license sales. What we learned from that study was that 83% of the people were purchasing a hunting and fishing license to be able to ride in this area. So we're going to see a revenue loss on our license side from that. I mean, we will have to see, you know, what the outcome of this is. But what the outcome will be is whatever revenue that this generates, that's the amount of trails that we will maintain. So if the revenue is less, we will maintain less amount of trails. We're going to manage this like a business model. Whatever we take in is what we will take care of and manage.
And also address the stream crossing issue.
Well, if you take what Commissioner Wright said earlier and you take that $40 million and you were to put that over, we're asking the staff to put together a management plan on how many stream crossings they can do a year, but we're going to have to see what kind of revenue we generate first and try to get out of those streams. But I think Commissioner Bach made a valid point. We are at risk here. We're going to have to be careful if we don't just try to keep people out of the streams and be able to maintain this in hopes that we don't get completely shut down.
Okay, any other questions before we vote on the amendment as presented?
One other comment, Mr. Chairman. In our discussions yesterday and with renewed commitments from the commissioner that spoke and from the mayor, then the county has committed to addressing cost of rock and possibly helping with transportation charges, and the county is going to increase their skin in the game. And I want to vote no on this amendment unless you make those changes. So I think some of the commitments from the county are going to offset our need for additional fees. So that's going to be my position.
Any other comments? Commissioner Saltzman, we have a motion. Could we get a second to Commissioner Saltzman's motion as presented? Second by Commissioner Moody. Any further discussion before we do a roll call vote? Or voice vote, then we'll see. Okay, you've heard the motion, you've heard the second discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, Mary, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Monty Baloo,
Yes.
Brad Box, Stan Butt,
No.
Wally Childress, Bill Cox,
Aye.
Greg Davenport. Sorry, he's not here. Chris Devaney.
Aye.
Ford. Rhonda Moody. Ford Little. Rhonda Moody. Chip Saltzman. Tommy Woods.
Aye.
Hank Wright. Jimmy Granbery.
No. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, at this, we will vote on the entire rule hearing as amended twice, one relative to Commissioner Cox and one relative to Commissioner Saltzman. And I will bring this forward as a motion. Do I have a second? Have a second. Any discussion on the rules in their entirety as amended? All five of them. All five of them as amended together.
But then all five passed.
No, they had, well, they might, yeah. So we have a motion and a second, and no further discussion. Mary, would you please call the roll?
Monty Baloo,
Yes.
Brad Box, Stan Butt,
Yes.
Wally Childress, Bill Cox,
Aye.
Chris Devaney,
Aye.
Ford Little,
Aye.
Rhonda Moody, Chip Saltzman, Tommy Woods,
Aye.
Hank Wright, Jimmy Granbery.
Yes.
All ayes.
Thank you, Mary. The ayes have it. All rules as amended, and we appreciate everybody's indulgence on those rules, and they have been presented at board. So the last item on the agenda is y'all got the Legacy Award nominations, and at this point in time, I would like to entertain any nominations for the 2024-25 Legacy Award. Commissioner Butt.
I'd like to nominate Terry and Jane Lewis.
Okay, thank you. Any other nominations from the floor? Okay, seeing none, we will appoint a committee to look at the nominees, and if you have any further nominees, please contact us. Thank you, commissioners. At this time, come to the end of our meeting. It's been a long meeting, a lot of good discussion. I wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and safe travels home. And if any commissioners have any further comment for the commissioners, for the commission or the public, we'll entertain those now. If not, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion adjourned.
Well, I didn't have any comments yet, Mike.
Oh,
No, hearing no further comments. Thank you again. Merry Christmas to everybody, and we're adjourned.